Chapter 13. Someone was calling me from far, far away. A quiet place. Cameron! Cameron! The voice grew louder and more urgent. It rushed at me like a Eurostar train. Cameron! Cameron! And then I was awake. It was dark. It took a few moments before I realised that my eyes were closed. But I was awake. Cameron, wake up. Now! Cameron! I was awake. And my chest hurt. Not badly, but it ached. I tried to take a deep breath, but a spear of pain shot through me from front to back. I instantly held my breath, waiting for the pain to ease, which it did. Slowly I opened my eyes. Dr. Bryce and Dr. Elric were looking down at me. They wore masks and gloves, but their eyes were happy. More than happy. Their eyes shone with delight. That's when I knew I'd had the operation. I'd made it. I was still here. I smiled and the effort exhausted me. I tried to speak, but my tongue was stuck to the roof of my mouth and my throat hurt. In fact, my throat was hurting quite badly. I hadn't expected that. I tried to swallow, but my mouth was as dry as Mars. Hello, Cameron. Dr. Bryce beamed at me. Even with the mask over his face, I could see he was beaming. I raised my hand and put it over my throat. Dr. Bryce nodded. Try not to speak. You've had an airway down your throat, so your throat will be sore for a day or two. My heart's gone. Only then did I remember. Only then did I dare to think. My old rubbishy heart had gone, and in its place a brand new, strong pig's heart. And then it happened. It crept up on me so slowly that I didn't realise what was happening till I was in the middle of it. I was hurting. Not so much as hurting as aching uncomfortably. My chest ached, my stomach ached, I wanted to cough, I had a headache, my throat ached, I felt sick. There was probably a millimetre long hair on the back of my hand somewhere that was comfortable, but that was about it. I tried to ask for help. I tried to tell the doctors how I felt. My tongue refused to move. The doctors continued to beam at me. We'll let you rest now, said Dr. Bryce, and when you wake up again, you can see your mum and dad. I closed my eyes, and just like that, I was out of it. For the next day, I drifted in and out of myself. At least that's what it felt like. I don't remember too much about it. It just seemed every time I opened my eyes, someone was smiling at me. Mum, Dad, doctors, nurses. I even dreamt that Trudy was smiling at me. And then at last I opened my eyes and I was awake, really awake and aware. How are we feeling, Cameron? Dr. Elric was instantly at my side, smiling. I coughed and instantly felt as if my chest was going to come apart. You will have a cough for a couple of days. That's the anaesthetic, I'm afraid. How's your throat? I swallowed hard. My mouth was no longer as dry as before. My throat wasn't as sore either, thank goodness. Better, I croaked. Was that really my voice? I sounded like a rusty frog. Would you like a little ice to suck on? Yes, please. I was still croaking. The doctor used a teaspoon to fish a small chunk of ice out of the water jug at the table by my bed. She popped it into my grateful mouth. It was cool and wet and actually delicious. You are doing phenomenally well. You can sit up, and if the tests we run today are favourable, maybe we'll have you walking a couple of steps tomorrow. I stared at the doctor. She had got to be kidding. I'd only just had a heart operation. What was going on? Were they short of beds or something? It's quite common practice. The doctor's smile broadened. She could obviously read my expression. Not too long ago, it was standard practice to stay in bed for weeks after an operation. Now it's recognised, actually, that's bad for you. We like to get our patients up and about as quickly as possible, even heart patients. Do you understand? I nodded, looked around. I took more of an interest in my surroundings. I wasn't in my room anymore. There were machines all around me, and I had an intravenous drip attached to each arm. Pads on my chest were hooked up to the heart monitor beside the bed. I had what looked like crocodile clips attached to the ends of 2 fingers, and there was some kind of cuff around one of my ankles. I felt like Pinocchio before he had his strings cut. I looked up at the intravenous bags on either side of me. I pointed to the left one. What's in that? I indicated with my head. It contains your anti-rejection drug, said Dr. Elric. And that one? Dextrose and saline. Huh? Sugar and salt water, to make sure you don't become dehydrated. Dr. Bryce entered the room. How are we feeling today? Fine, I shrugged. And I was feeling fine, in a peculiar detached kind of way. Somehow, it was all a bit of an anticlimax. I had spent so many weeks thinking about the operation and the day leading up to it that I hadn't really given much thought to what would happen afterwards. And now here I was with not much of a clue as to what should or would happen next. We are amazed with your progress. You are doing extremely well, Dr. Bryce told me. Does that mean I can go home soon? I asked. There was no escaping the look that passed between Dr. Bryce and Dr. Elric. Is something wrong? I asked immediately. Nothing for you to worry about. Dr. Bryce's smile was as wide as it was false. I studied him carefully. I thought you were going to be honest with me and not treat me like an idiot, I said, disappointed. Dr. Bryce shook his head slowly. I'm sorry if that's how it came across. It's just, I've had some bad news today. No, not about you or your operation, he added. Oh, hang on. Quickly, when he saw the look on my face. At least, not directly. The doctor paused, took a deep breath and turned to Dr. Elric. Janice, could you go and get Cameron's parents, please? What's going on? I struggled to sit further up the bed. The beep of the heart monitor was getting faster, as if I needed that to tell me I was getting anxious. Mum and Dad came into the room, their expressions grim. Mum was carrying a newspaper. And in that instant, I knew what had happened. I did ask all of you to keep this strictly confidential till I'd formally released details to the media, Dr. Bryce said, to no one in particular. Which is how I knew he knew it was me who had let the cat out of the bag. Marlon gave his word he wouldn't tell anyone, not even his parents. I couldn't deny I had been the one to blab, but I still tried to defend myself. Well, this newspaper speaks for itself, doesn't it? Mum said tersely. I thought John and Erica were our friends, said Dad. I thought of Marlon's mum and Dad and all the times we'd been back and forth to each other's house. Our two families had even toured around the Lake District together. I'm sure that rag made them an offer they couldn't refuse, Dr. Bryce said with disgust. But they must have gone to the newspapers with the story to sell it in the first place. I stretched out my hand for the newspaper. Mum gave it to me without another word. Just one look at the headline was enough to confirm my worst fears. Daily Express, world exclusive. The boy with a pig's heart inside his body. Now I'll show you a copy of the page. Okay. I'm not going to read the news article. We're going to move on. Cameron, you're going to stay away from all of them, including Marlon. Do you hear me? Mum fumed. This whole business will now be turned into a 3-ring circus, Dr. Bryce shook his head, and each of us will be considered exhibits. Maybe it's just a 1-week wonder, Dad said hopefully. I'm sure the press will find something else to interest them tomorrow. Both Dr. Bryce and Dr. Elric stared at Dad in stunned amazement. Mum just looked at him as if he'd lost his marbles. Me? I had other things on my mind. Marlon was my best friend. And best friends didn't do that to each other. Friends didn't betray each other. Friends could keep secrets. I looked down at the newspaper again. The headline shrieked at me. I can't understand it, I whispered. Why did Marlon do it? Why? And at that moment, I felt more hurting inside than from anything the doctors had done to me over the last few days. Marlon was supposed to be my friend. In his shoes, I would never have told anyone. Never. Your friend's motives aren't the issue now. We all have to decide how to proceed from here. Mr. and Mrs. Kelsey, perhaps we could discuss this outside, Dr. Bryce suggested. No, this concerns me, doesn't it? This is about me, isn't it? Shouldn't I be part of the discussion? Dad shook his head. We don't want you to be any more upset than you already are. I couldn't be any more upset, but don't worry, I'm not about to keel over. Mum nodded slowly, then smiled. I don't think this is a good idea. Mum shrugged. Mike, as Cameron said, it does involve him too, and if he feels up to it, Dr. Bryce doesn't have any objections. I don't see why not. Dr. Bryce took a good hard look at me and then visibly relaxed. Cameron, as I'm sure you'll appreciate, our first priority has to be to protect you. If we don't do something and fast, the press will be all over your family, like cheap perfume. He sounded like he was quoting a line from one of those old black and white detective movies that Nan liked so much. It was funny peculiar to hear him say something like that. I almost smiled. Almost. So what do we do? Asked Mum. We spiked their guns. I'll call an immediate press conference to tell the press exactly what's happened. Do you all have somewhere else to stay other than your house? Dad frowned. Why? Because I think you should all lie low for a while. Just until the hullabaloo has died down. Lie low? We're not outlaws or criminals. Why should we lie low? Mum snapped out. Believe me, it's the best thing, Dr. Bryce soothed. It won't be for long. Just a month or two. A month or two? Mum wasn't the only one who was shocked. The press can be relentless. No. Mum's voice was quiet and all the more firm because of it. I am not going to let the press, or anyone else for that matter, hound us out of our house. We haven't done anything wrong. I'm not going to let anyone treat us as if we have. Mrs. Kelsey, I would recommend we are not moving out of our house, and just as soon as Cameron is fit enough, he's going back to school. Mum's heels were well and truly dug in now. I'm sorry, Dr. Bryce, but I think my wife is right. We'd have to face this sooner or later. Surely it's better to do it now and get it over with. Then we can all go back to normal, said Dad. Mr. and Mrs. Kelsey, I think no. I know you're underestimating just what a pack of vultures you'll be dealing with. I've had the press camping out on my doorstep before. I know what I'm talking about, Dr. Bryce said sternly. As long as we have each other, we can handle it, said Dad. It'll be a 1-week wonder. Then the whole thing will blow over. Mum looked up at Dad and smiled. For the first time in a long time, they smiled at each other and I was temporarily forgotten. I didn't mind, to be honest. It was nice to see. It made a change. I think you're both deluding yourself, and for Cameron's sake, I would urge you to reconsider. Dr. Bryce wasn't going to give up. We'll be okay. Mum smiled at the doctor. The sooner we can get back to normal, the better. The doctor shook his head. I'll call the press conference for tomorrow and another when Cameron is ready to go home. He sighed. Are you both prepared to take part in the second conference with me? Dad turned to Mum, a questioning look on his face. Is that really necessary? Mum asked. I would recommend it. It's better to throw the wolves a morsel or two than have them to devour you alive. Believe me, Dr. Bryce replied. Then we'll do it. Cameron is going to be fine, and that's what I want to tell the world. So when can I go home? I asked Dr. Bryce. If you carry on like this, I don't see any reason why you couldn't go home within the next month. The next month? I said dismayed. That long? Cameron, the worst thing I could do now is send you home before I'm 100% convinced that the anti-rejection therapy is working. Don't forget, this particular type of transplant has never been done before. I slouched back against my pillows, disappointed. All I wanted to do was go home, go to school, and show all my friends I was the same as them. I wanted to play football and swim and dance. I smiled ruefully. I guess the truth of the matter was I wanted to show off. But until then, I'm just going to have to be patient.